Hello everyone, I'm Afaf Kanja and welcome to South-South News, where we showcase the implementation of best practices in South-South and triangular cooperation for the development of greater and stronger people, economies, countries, and therefore our world. Today our topic is climate change, and our very special guest is Mr. Erik Rasmussen, the founder of the Copenhagen Climate Council and the founder and CEO of Scandinavia's largest think tank, Monday Morning. Welcome to South-South News.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we can begin our conversation on climate change by stepping back just a few steps here, because we still have in today's time what are so-called climate change deniers and people who attribute everything to climate change or global warming. If you can, Erik, if I may call you Erik, tell us, what is climate change? What is happening today in our world?
Climate change, it is, for example, when you have more snow in New York than ever, and when it's warmer in Greenland than ever, and for example, when you have floods in Australia, and a few months before, then you have firestorms and so forth. It is this really dramatic change of climate and dramatic weather conditions. You will see that all over, and you're just seeing the beginning. That is climate change. It's all based on the fact that the global heating, and it causes a lot of problems and really changes the climate upside down. So this is climate change, and there's one thing which could say for sure, this is just the beginning. You will have it worse and worse. So climate change is affecting us all from now on and the years to come.
Tell us a little bit about the council. Tell us about where you are today. Are decision makers being receptive? Are global treaties, in fact, on the way? Is there progress in what's happening?
No, relatively not, because the problems are accelerating much faster than the treaties and whatever. And as a matter of fact, we have lost a lot of years in discussing and not really understanding the magnitude of this problem. So I'll say that, for example, 3 years ago, climate change was the big issue. Everyone talked about it. I was in the World Economic Forum Summit in Davos, and it was the big issue. Today, you don't even talk about it, because it took 3 years, then climate change was out of the agenda. It was a fluffy word for a lot of people. Now we call it green growth. Now we talk, but green growth is fine too. But the problem is it doesn't solve the climate change issue. So I think that we are in a very confused stage, and I think we have lost the understanding of how serious this problem is, what we should deal about it, and I think we really don't understand that we have passed the so-called tipping point where we can prevent climate disasters. We normalize right now what I call a middle-sized climate disaster. We can hope we can prevent the really big disaster, but since we have used so much time in discussing, are you right or wrong, or deniers here and there and so forth. So, so far, I'm afraid to say, we have lost influence on our destiny.
If there isn't belief, then how can there be change? So I'll play devil's advocate for one more moment here. There are people who are talking about, scientists who are talking about the superstorm that's about to hit California. Now, the interesting part here, and the point I'm trying to make, is that this superstorm apparently occurs every 200 years, and we're in that 50-year gap as well. The floods, the devastating floods in Australia just recently, just the beginning of this new year. Now, Australians, just in the reports that we've read, said, oh my God, I don't remember this since I was a little kid in 1974, 76. So how is it new and emerging climate change issues when, in fact, in these cases, it's historical?
You will always, when we're talking about climate, there will always be a lot of things which is happening again and again, and say, okay, it happened that, so it's part of normal situations. But looking at the bigger picture and talk to 90% of the scientists, they see that besides all these conditions which will change all the time, there is a trend which is very clear and which leads one way, and that is this very huge change of climate conditions and therefore affecting our civilization. But the problem is that science is not just science. There's different attitudes, there are different ideas about these things, and you interpret them in different ways. But it doesn't change the very fact that the mainstream, or the big picture, is just one picture, and that is that we are facing a new and very dangerous situation. But the problem is that that there will be doubts, but it's a very, very dangerous doubt. And I think the doubt we might have is the most dangerous doubt we ever have faced in the world, because the day we really are sure and there are no doubts anymore, it is too late. So this is what is really make it very, very problematic. And that's why our biggest problem is not climate change in itself, but how to tell about climate change. It is deep down a communication problem.
On that note, I read a very fascinating article that you've recently written, calling climate change the world's most dangerous epidemic. You speak about the potential of basically wiping out humanity as we know it at the end of this century. Tell us about some of the statistics the scientists are in fact showing us today on what's happening, like you say, this pattern of these extreme weathers actually becoming more commonplace now, if you can extrapolate.
What we see right now, it is that we are, these changes are accelerating. What we used to use as a premise, it is it's something called parts per million. We have something like now what it called 390 parts per million. That really tells about how big this emission, CO2 emission is. And but this is developing all the time. And all the scientists can follow how fast this accelerates. And even the International Energy Agency, they have warned last year very specifically that these two more degrees globally, which really is something we have fought against, that we should never pass that stage. Now we are talking about 3 or 4 degrees. But the problem is, again, when we're talking about these things, it's so technical. It's so problematic that it's very, very difficult for normal people, even politicians, to understand all these explanations. So therefore, going back to what I said before, it is deeper down a communication problem. How do you really tell such a complicated story to that many people at the same time and have them change attitude, have them change behavior, being politicians, being the normal people? So far, we have talked about climate change in different languages. The scientists have talked their language for decades. Nobody understood them, but they really warned. The politicians have talked their language. Nobody else understood them. They have their language. Business talks their language. Nobody else understands. So we all have these different languages, and the public didn't understand any of their languages, so they were left out. So what we have to do now, it is to develop a shared language which really tells about what is at stake, especially for the next generation. I'll give you an example. If you could imagine that an asteroid was heading for the Earth, we knew for a fact that it would hit Mother Earth in 10 years' time. You could see it every night on the TV screen. It come closer and closer. Yeah. You knew where it would hit, and you knew exactly all the consequences. Yes. What would the world society do? I'm quite sure that the world society would get together in an unparalleled effort, really, to stop that from happening. Absolutely. But it's happening. The asteroid is heading for the Earth. We feel the stones in our heads and so forth. But we set up all kinds of political organizations. We talk about what can we do next year, can we have binding treaties, while this asteroid is heading for us. So what's the difference? The difference is it's much easier to communicate the asteroid because it's there, you can see, than the climate change, even if the same kind of danger. So therefore, going back to this is the biggest challenge ever the communication ever, that we should be able to really tell the story in a way that all people can understand what is at stake for us and the future generation. And so that's where we really have the challenge.
I think you make, in your article again, a very, very sound link between climate change, the impacts of climate change, and our global financial crisis, and how that could actually be seen as an opportunity for innovation in what's being called green economy, sustainable development. Can you extrapolate on that?
Yes, because if we really should go and fight climate change, really should change it. We can't prevent that we have certain climate disasters, but we could, if we really invested in green technologies, then we could turn the financial crisis into a new growth adventure, whatever. If we really did so, then there is a possibility that we could turn the tide. But it really means that we have to plan for the next industrial revolution. It takes a new industrial revolution to do so. That will be the first planned industrial revolution in the history of mankind. Otherwise, the others, they just, progressed. So if it did so, and public and private sector really develop incentives, possibilities for doing a massive investment in this, and then, but investment in the way you reach out to communication to make people understand and got involved, then you could turn the climate change scenario and disaster into a new green quality of life. So there are really possibilities, but that really depends on the fact that we really believe in this, understand it, and invest in it. And then you have all the deniers. Okay, you lose a lot of money and you lose jobs and so forth. This is nothing compared to what will happen if we don't do anything. So therefore, I think we have no choice as I see it. But again, there are big, because we have, for example, these extreme weather conditions, now we have a lot of snow, okay, that took care of the global warming. Right. But again, it's a matter of to communicate, to tell the story in a way, create pictures, which really tells you that you could, your choice is climate disaster or a new green lifestyle, to put it very simply.